Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The rain hammered against the hospital windows like desperate fingers seeking entry, each drop carrying the weight of Marcus's unspoken fears. He sat in the sterile waiting room, his hands trembling as he stared at the double doors that had swallowed his wife, Elena, 3 hours ago. The doctor's words echoed in his mind like a broken record. The accident caused severe trauma to her. Head. Memory loss is ... possible. But nothing could have prepared him for what came next. When Elena finally opened her eyes, Marcus felt his world shift beneath his feet. She looked at him with the same green eyes that had captivated him 8 years ago. The same delicate features that had made him fall in love at first sight. But there was something different, a blankness. A disconnect that made his heart fracture into a million pieces. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the steady beeping of the machines. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. The woman who had shared his bed for 5 years, who knew every scar on his body and every fear in his heart, was looking at him like a complete stranger. The woman who used to wake him up with gentle kisses, who could read his moods from across a room, who had whispered "I love you" into his ear just that morning, she was gone. "I'm Marcus," he managed to say, his voice cracking. "I'm your husband." Eleanor's eyes widened with confusion, and something that looked dangerously close to fear. "Husband, but I don't remember you. I don't remember anything." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. He wanted to scream, to shake her, to somehow force the memories back into her beautiful head. Instead, he simply nodded, tears streaming down his face as he watched the love of his life slip away from him while still lying right there. The weeks that followed were a special kind of torture. Marcus watched helplessly as Elena navigated her new reality, a world where 5 years of marriage had been erased as if they had never existed. She was polite but distant, treating him like a well-meaning stranger who had somehow become responsible for her care. When he tried to hold her hand, she would pull away. When he attempted to kiss her goodnight, she would turn her cheek. When he told her he loved her, she would look at him with pity and confusion. "I'm sorry," she would say, her voice breaking with each apology. "I know I should feel something, but I don't. I look at you, and I see a stranger. A kind stranger, but still a stranger." Dr. Sarah Chen, Elena's neurologist, explained that retrograde amnesia could be unpredictable. "Some patients recover their memories gradually," she said during one of their sessions. "Others may never fully recover what they've lost. The key is not to pressure her. Let her discover things naturally." But how could Marcus not pressure her when every morning he woke up next to a woman who flinched at his touch? How could he be patient when she asked permission to use the bathroom in her own home? How could he watch the love of his life treat him like a stranger without his heart breaking a little more each day? The nights were the worst. Elena would lie on the far edge of their bed, as far from Marcus as possible, her body rigid with discomfort. The woman who used to curl into his arms, who used to trace lazy patterns on his chest as they talked, now treated him like a threat. The intimacy they had built over years of marriage was gone, replaced by an awkward politeness that felt like a knife twisting in his chest. "I know this is hard," Elena said one night, her voice barely a whisper in the darkness. "I know I was different before. I can see it in your eyes, the way you look at me like you're mourning someone who died." Marcus turned to face her, his heart breaking at the distance between them. "I'm mourning us," he admitted. "I'm mourning the woman who used to laugh at my terrible jokes, who used to steal my coffee every morning, who used to make me feel like the luckiest man alive." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Was I really that happy? We both were. Then why can't I feel it? Why can't I remember what it felt like to love you? Marcus had no answer for that. How do you explain love to someone who has forgotten how to feel it? How do you rebuild a connection that took years to develop? 3 months after the accident, Marcus found himself standing in their bedroom doorway, watching Elena pack her clothes into a suitcase. She had insisted on sleeping in the guest room for the past month. And now, she was preparing to move out entirely. I think it would be better if I stayed with my sister for a while, she said without looking at him. This is too confusing, Marcus. I need space to figure out who I am, without the pressure of trying to be someone I can't remember. This is who you are, Marcus said quietly, his voice thick with desperation. This is our life, Elena. Our photos, our memories, our love. Look around this room, we painted these walls together. That chair in the corner? You found it at a flea market and insisted we bring it home even though it didn't match anything. That book on the knitstand. You've read it so many times the pages are falling out. She turned to face him then, and Marcus saw tears glistening in her eyes. But I don't remember any of it. I look at these pictures and I see a stranger wearing my face. I see a woman who apparently loved you, but I don't feel it. I don't feel anything except guilt and confusion. The words cut through Marcus like a blade. He wanted to tell her about their first kiss on the beach in Santorini, about the way she used to curl up against him during thunderstorms, about the morning she had cried happy tears when the pregnancy test showed positive before the miscarriage that had brought them closer together rather than tearing them apart. He wanted to tell her about the way she used to hum while cooking, about her terrible singing voice that he adored, about the way she would fall asleep during movies and deny it vehemently the next day. Instead, he simply nodded, his heart shattering into even smaller pieces. If that's what you need. Elena moved in with her sister Catherine, and Marcus was left alone in a house that felt like a museum of his former life. He couldn't bring himself to remove their wedding photos from the walls or pack away Elena's things. Her coffee cup still sat in the sink, her books still lined the shelves, her pillow still smelled like her perfume. Every evening he found himself sitting in her chair at the dinner table, eating takeout and wondering if she was thinking about him at all. The loneliness was suffocating. Marcus had always been a social person, but now he found himself withdrawing from friends and family. How could he explain that his wife was alive but gone? How could he make them understand that he was grieving someone who was still breathing? Catherine called him regularly with updates. Elena was seeing a therapist, trying to piece together her past through photos and journals. She had started working part-time at a local bookstore, finding solace in the stories of others since her own story remained a mystery. She asks about you sometimes, Catherine admitted during one of their conversations. She wants to know what kind of man you are, what your marriage was like. What do you tell her? The truth. That you're a good man who loves her more than life itself. That you two were happy before the accident. That she used to light up whenever you walked into a room. Marcus closed his eyes, pressing the phone closer to his ear. Does she want to see me? There was a pause. She's scared, Marcus. She's scared of the expectations, of the pressure to be someone she can't remember being. But she's also curious. She's been looking through her old journals, trying to understand who she was. What do the journals say? They're full of you. Every entry mentions you in some way. She wrote about your dates, your conversations, your dreams for the future. She wrote about how safe you made her feel, how loved. She even wrote about the way you make that face when you're concentrating on something difficult. Marcus felt a tear roll down his cheek. She always made fun of that face. She still does, in the journals. She wrote about it 3 days before the accident. The knowledge that Elena had been documenting their love, that she had been writing about him with such tenderness just days before forgetting he existed, was both comforting and devastating. It proved that their love had been real, but it also emphasized how completely it had been erased. 6 months after Elena had moved out, Marcus received an unexpected call. It was Elena herself, her voice tentative and uncertain. "Could we talk? Could we meet for coffee?" she asked. "I've been thinking, and I realized I've been unfair to you. I've been running from a life I don't remember instead of trying to understand." Marcus's heart leaped. "Of course, whenever you want. Tomorrow? Around 2? I'll be there." That night, Marcus barely slept. He changed clothes 3 times, rehearsing what he would say, how he would act. He wanted to be perfect for her, to somehow make her remember what they had shared. But he also knew that too much pressure would send her running again. They met at a small cafe downtown, the same place where they had their first date 8 years ago. Marcus arrived early, his palms sweating as he waited for her. When Elena walked in, his breath caught in his throat. She looked beautiful. Her auburn hair was shorter now, framing her face in a way that made her look both familiar and foreign. She was wearing a green dress that brought out her eyes, and for a moment, Marcus could almost pretend that nothing had changed. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting across from him. "I know this has been hard for you." "It's been hard for both of us," Marcus replied, resisting the urge to reach across the table and take her hand. Elena nodded, wrapping her fingers around her coffee cup. "I've been seeing a therapist, and she's been helping me understand that I don't have to be the person I was before. But she also helped me realize that I've been unfair to you. You lost your wife in that accident just as much as I lost my memories." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I just want you to be happy, Elena. Even if that means not being with you." He nodded, not trusting his voice. Elena was quiet for a long moment, studying his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Tell me about us," she said finally. "Not the big moments. I've seen the wedding photos and read the cards. Tell me about the small things, the everyday moments that made up our life." Marcus took a shaky breath, choosing his words carefully. "You used to steal my coffee in the mornings, even though you had your own cup. You said mine always tasted better, but I think you just liked the intimacy of sharing. You would curl up on the couch to read, and you'd unconsciously play with your hair when you were really absorbed in a book." A small smile touched Eleanor's lips. "I still do that. You have this laugh, not the polite one you use with strangers, but a real laugh that starts in your chest and bubbles up. You used to laugh like that when we watched old movies together. You'd make fun of the cheesy dialogue, but you'd cry at the romantic parts anyway. What else? You used to trace patterns on my chest when we talked in bed. Abstract designs, words, sometimes your name. You probably didn't even realize you were doing it." Marcus's voice grew softer. "You were always cold, so you'd steal my warmth. You'd press your feet against my legs, and I'd complain, but I secretly loved it because it meant you needed me." Eleanor's eyes had grown bright with unshed tears. "I wish I could remember." "Maybe," Marcus said carefully, "you don't need to remember. Maybe you just need to decide if you want to try again." Elena looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "I've been reading my journals," she said finally. "Every night, I read about this woman who was so in love with her husband that she could barely contain it. She wrote about you like you were a miracle, like she couldn't believe she was lucky enough to have you." Marcus felt his heart racing. "What did she write?" "She wrote about the way you make her coffee exactly how she likes it without being asked. She wrote about how you leave little notes in her lunch when she has a difficult day at work. She wrote about how you hold her during thunderstorms, even though you're probably more scared than she is." "She knew about that?" Elena smiled, a real smile this time. "She wrote that you try to be brave for her, but she can feel your heart racing against her back. She loved that about you, that you were willing to be afraid as long as she felt safe. They talked for hours that day, Elena asking questions and Marcus answering them with growing hope. She wanted to know about their routines, their inside jokes, their dreams for the future. She wanted to understand the woman she had been, and the man she had loved. "There's something else," Elena said as they prepared to leave. "I've been having dreams. Fragments of things that feel like memories but might just be wishful thinking." "What kind of dreams?" "There's one where I'm dancing with someone. I can't see his face, but I feel safe, happy. And there's another where I'm in a kitchen, and someone is behind me, arms around my waist. I can't remember the details, but I remember the feeling." Marcus's heart ached. They had danced at their wedding, swaying to their song long after the other guests had gone home. And he had held her in their kitchen countless mornings, stealing moments of intimacy over coffee and breakfast. "Do you think they're real?" Elena asked. "I think," Marcus said carefully, "that the heart remembers things the mind forgets." They began meeting regularly after that tentative coffee dates that gradually evolved into longer conversations. Elena was like a cautious bird, ready to fly away at the first sign of pressure or expectation. But slowly, gradually, she began to relax around him. Marcus found himself falling in love with her all over again. But this time it was different. This Elena was more guarded, more fragile. She had lost her easy confidence, her natural warmth, but she was also more thoughtful, more intentional. Every smile she gave him felt earned. Every laugh felt like a gift. "I'm not the same person I was before," she told him one evening as they walked through the park near their old home. "I can feel it, even without the memories. I'm different now." "How?" "I'm scared of things I was never scared of before. I'm more careful, more hesitant." The old Elena seemed fearless, at least in her journals. This Elena is afraid of everything. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. "What are you afraid of?" "I'm afraid of disappointing you. I'm afraid of not being the woman you fell in love with. I'm afraid that you're going to wake up one day and realize that I'm not her, that I'm just a stranger wearing her face, Elena, and I'm afraid that I'm starting to have feelings for you, and I don't know if they're real or if I'm just trying to become someone I'm not." Marcus felt his heart stop. "You're having feelings for me?" Elena looked away, her cheeks flushing. "I try not to, but I can't help it. You're kind and patient, and you look at me like I'm precious. No one has ever looked at me like that before, at least. Not that I can remember." "How do I look at you?" "Like I'm the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Like you would do anything to protect me. Like you love me so much it hurts." Marcus stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I do love you that much. I've loved you since the moment I met you, and I'll love you until the day I die." The accident didn't change that, Elena. Nothing could change that. That night, Elena came home with him. Not permanently, she still maintained her distance, still slept in the guest room. But for the first time since the accident, they were under the same roof again. They sat on the couch, the same couch where they had watched countless movies, where they had shared their first kiss as husband and wife after their wedding, where they had held each other through the grief of losing their baby. Now they sat on opposite ends, the space between them feeling like an ocean. "I found something," Elena said, pulling a small velvet box from her purse. "It was in my jewelry box at Catherine's house." Marcus recognized it immediately, Elena's wedding ring, the one she had removed in the hospital and never put back on. She opened the box, staring at the simple band with its small diamond, the ring he had saved for months to buy. "I remember this," she said suddenly, her voice filled with wonder. Not the ceremony, not the proposal, But I remember this ring. I remember the feeling of wearing it. The weight of it on my finger. Do you remember anything else? Elena closed her eyes, concentrating. I remember ... safety. I remember feeling claimed, but in a good way. Like I belonged to someone who would never hurt me. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. You did belong to me. And I belong to you. Completely. Elena looked at him, her green eyes bright with unshed tears. I want to try, she said. I want to try to build something with you. Not because I remember what we had, but because I want to see what we could have. The next few months were a delicate dance of rediscovery. Elena slowly moved back into their home, first spending nights, then weekends, then finally moving back permanently. But she kept her own space, her own routines. She was building a new life rather than trying to reclaim her old one. Marcus had to learn to love her differently. The old Elena had been spontaneous and passionate, quick to laugh and quick to forgive. This Elena was more cautious, more thoughtful. She needed time to process her emotions, time to trust her feelings. But when she did open up, when she did let him in, it was even more precious because he knew how much it cost her. Their physical relationship developed slowly. Elena had been afraid of intimacy at first, afraid that her body would remember things. Her mind couldn't. But gradually, she began to relax around him. She would let him hold her hand, let him kiss her cheek, let him wrap his arms around her from behind. I'm broken, she told him one night as they lay in bed together, not making love but simply holding each other. I'm not the woman you married. You're not broken, Marcus said, his voice fierce with conviction. You're different, but you're not broken. And I didn't just fall in love with the woman you were, Elena. I'm falling in love with the woman you are now. How can you be sure? Because every day I discover something new about you. Every day I find another reason to love you. The old Elena was wonderful, but this Elena is extraordinary. You've survived something that would have destroyed most people. You've had the courage to build a new life, to open your heart to love. Again, even when you couldn't remember what love felt like. Elena turned in his arms, studying his face in the moonlight. I think I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. Not because I'm supposed to, but because I can't help it. When they finally made love, it was like the first time all over again. Elena was nervous, uncertain, but also curious. She explored his body like she was mapping new territory, learning the landscape of his scars and birthmarks, the rhythm of his heartbeat, the way he responded to her touch. I wish I could remember our first time, she said afterward, her head on his chest. This was our first time, Marcus replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. Everything else was the old Elena and the old Marcus. This is us now. Elena lifted her head to look at him. I love you, she said, and Marcus felt his heart soar. It was the first time she had said the words since the accident, and they felt like a miracle. I love you too, he replied. And he meant it in a way that encompassed both the woman she had been and the woman she was becoming. As the months passed, Elena began to create new memories to replace the ones she had lost. She started a garden in the backyard, something she had never been interested in before the accident. She learned to cook not the elaborate meals she used to make, but simple dishes that brought her joy. She took up photography, documenting their new life together with an artist's eye for beauty. I'm not trying to be her, she told Marcus one evening as they worked in the garden together. I'm trying to be me, whoever that is. You're perfect, Marcus said, meaning it. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. 1 year after the accident, Elena made a decision that surprised them both. She wanted to renew their wedding vows, not because she remembered their first wedding, but because she wanted to make her own promises, her own commitment. I want to marry you, she said, her voice strong and clear. Not because I used to be married to you, but because I choose to be married to you now. I want to promise you my future, even if I can't remember our past. They were married in a small ceremony with just close family and friends. Elena wore a simple white dress, her hair adorned with flowers from their garden. She had written her own vows, and when she spoke them, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. I may not remember the woman who first fell in love with you, she said, looking directly into Marcus's eyes. But I know the woman who loves you now. And I choose you, Marcus. I choose us. I choose this life we're building together, one day at a time. Marcus's vows were simple but heartfelt. I promise to love you for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I didn't know then that I would have the chance to fall in love with you twice. You are my wife, my partner, my best friend. You are my past, my present, and my future. As they kissed to seal their renewed vows, Marcus felt a sense of completeness he hadn't experienced since the accident. They were no longer trying to reclaim their old life. They were building a new one, together. That night, as Elena lay in his arms, she did something she hadn't done since before the accident. She traced patterns on his chest, abstract designs. Words, sometimes her name. She didn't realize she was doing it, but Marcus smiled in the darkness, knowing that some things transcend memory. I had another dream, Elena said softly. This one was different. What was it about? I was in a hospital room, and someone was holding my hand. I couldn't see who it was, but I felt so loved, so protected. And then I heard a voice saying, "Come back to me." Marcus felt his breath catch. He had said those exact words to her as she lay unconscious after the accident, holding her hand and begging her to wake up. "Do you think it was real?" Elena asked. "I think it was the most real thing in the world," Marcus replied. Elena was quiet for a moment. "I may never remember our old life," she said finally, "but I'm grateful for this new one. I'm grateful that I get to discover you all over again, that I get to fall in love with you every day, even if you never remember, especially because I never remember. Every day with you is a gift, Marcus. Every day I choose you is a victory over whatever took my memories away." As they drifted off to sleep, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The accident had taken away their past, but it had also given them something precious, the chance to choose each other again, to build something new and beautiful from the ashes of what they had lost. In the morning, Elena would wake up and choose him again, and the day after that, and the day after that, not because she remembered their past, but because she believed in their future. Love, Marcus had learned, wasn't about perfect memory or unchanging hearts. It was about the courage to begin again, to trust in the possibility of new love even when the old love seemed lost forever. It was about choosing each other every day, about building a life together one moment at a time. And in the quiet of their bedroom, surrounded by the life they had built together, Marcus chose Elena all over again, not the woman she had been, but the woman she was now, the woman she was becoming. Outside, the rain began to fall again, but this time it didn't sound like desperate fingers seeking entry. It sounded like a lullaby, a gentle rhythm that spoke of new beginnings and the endless possibility of love renewed. Elena stirred in his arms, murmuring his name in her sleep, and Marcus knew that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it. Together, they had learned that love wasn't something you remember. It was something you choose. Again and again, every day. And that, Marcus realized, was the most beautiful love story of all.